this is a testimony of how God came through in my academics. So recently I was writing 4 tests in 1 week, 2 on a Wednesday and 2 on a Thursday. Very, very important tests that were literally going to affect my DP, right? And so I had to just give myself completely, like, all my energy, all my time and everything. But I felt very depleted, just prior to even studying for everything, because I had tests before that, for other stuff, right? And so I was just asking the Lord, I'm like, God, what am I going to do? Like, I have all these tests and they're in 2 days, but it's 4 different tests for 4 different modules. How am I going to do this? This looks very, very impossible. But God would just reaffirm me that nothing is impossible with him. And he gave me a revelation of who he is. And it was from that revelation where I realized that no, I can actually trust God regardless of the situation. The situation doesn't tell me whether or not God is able to come through, because there's no situation that is too big for God. And so in this situation, I decided to trust in the Lord. And mind you, my time management was all over the place. My management of everything, my schedule, my timetabling was all over the place. I hadn't studied for the last 2 tests on the Thursday. Let me just be very, very transparent. I hadn't studied for them before. I only started studying them for them. So this is what happened, right? We had the test on Wednesday, right? The 2 tests on Wednesday, I did those. The final test on the Wednesday ended at 8 p.m. It was only at 8 p.m. when I started studying for the test. For not like start studying exactly at the 8 p.m. because the test came out at 8 p.m. meaning that I have to leave the venue, I have to go home. So that would be like about an hour or so, and just delay, exhaustion. So around 2 hours, and so basically I only started studying, I'd say, at midnight. I didn't sleep. I slept maybe less than 30 minutes, I won't even lie, because when I got home after the test on the 8 p.m. test, the test that came out at 8 p.m., after that test I took a very, very short nap. It was definitely less than an hour. I don't know how long it was. It wasn't even on purpose. I just fell asleep because I was so exhausted, right? So that's what I'm saying. I started studying for the Thursday tests. There were 2 tests. The first test, I had studied for it before. Maybe I had visited the information about twice, I'd say. And then the test that I was gonna write at 5 p.m. on the Thursday, I hadn't studied it at all. So I started studying for that second test on the day of the test. Now, I don't recommend this, right? This is just, I was all over the place because it was one test after the other. And the reason why it was like this is because it was spread out at first, but things were on pause at my university. And so all the tests that were meant to be at a specific week were moved over to the following week. And that week already had its own tests. And so everything started to clash, and we started talking to the lecturers and say, please move the test. So it was chaotic. And the only way that we had to reach a level of compromise where we had to be like, okay, you know what? I need a DP. I have to write tests. I need to do this, even though it looks crazy, but I need to do it. And so, God came through and I wrote those tests my mentality when writing the test, my mentality in writing the Thursday test, in fact, all 4 tests, is that, you know what, despite all of this, despite the fact that I am not depending on what science says right now, I am not depending on what biology says right now, because all of that will tell me that you need to view the information at least 3 weeks before you write. All science would tell me, right? And I've done research on this, right? Spaced repetition and all these things. I have done serious research on this for my own sake, so that I can, when I'm studying, I am studying from a place of knowledge of the best way forward, right? When studying, but I had to throw all of that out the window because I was in a valley. And my only option was to rely on the Holy Spirit, because failing is not an option. That's just not an option at all, right? And so when God gave me revelation of who He is, it made me realize that even though this looks very impossible, but God is with me. He's with me in the middle of this. And so, and so He guided me. I went into the tests. He reminded me of everything. Mind you, the second test I only started studying on the day of the test. Like I had never seen the information before. But, and this is not okay. I would never endorse this, okay? I was just all over the place. It was just one of those times where you're just all over the place because everything is chaotic. The timetable keeps shifting. Yeah, I also need more discipline and everything. But, when I was in the test, the Lord kept reminding me of exactly what I saw, of what I studied, right? He would, as I'm studying, the Lord would teach me how to study, that this is actually the best way to do it, you know? And for someone else who isn't in fellowship with the Holy Spirit, it may sound like, that's a little bit like dragged out, you know? I don't think God would tell you exactly. No, He would, because He's actually our helper and He's our teacher. And so for God, He's unlimited. He's nothing. There's nothing impossible for God. You know, He's not intimidated by my academics. It's not like when it comes to my academics, He's like, yeah, okay, no, that's your business. That's not my business. Like, He knows I need help. I can't do it without Him, you know? So as I was writing, the Lord would just remind me of everything. Even though I only went through it a couple of hours, right? On the morning of the test, right? God would just remind me of everything as if I've been studying it for days, as if I've been actually doing the spaced repetition, you know? So I wanted to just testify about that so that you also know that the Holy Spirit is your advantage. He's your advantage. You don't have to live the same life that an unbeliever lives. If you have the Holy Spirit dwelling within you, you have an advantage. God bless you.